Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat episode 357 featuring part 2 of my interview with Mr. Don Wilkins, the designer and developer of Stellar Tactics. In this part of the interview we talk about his favorite game that he's worked on, Wizardry Gold. We also talk about Arcanum, what it's like to be a producer and how you sort of lose some of that creative side of the job, but you basically are the one that's responsible for getting the game out the door. It's a very important role. We'll talk about what that's like. And then we also talk about his time at Sierra. Turns out Don worked at Sierra just as that company was falling apart at the seams. Really good stuff. You definitely want to stay tuned. Anyway, got a lot of great stories here. So without further ado, here is Mr. Don Wilkins. All right, so I know you were a big fan of Wizardry Gold. So that was one of your favorite games of all time.
To make.
Yeah, to make. Probably, was it fun to play too?
It was fun to play too. You know, it's interesting though, because really the whole deal with Wizardry Gold was we were taking Wizardry 7 and building it out for Windows and adding some things and changing some things. And I actually really enjoyed the project. It was.
Did you like working with this WinG system? Was that?
It was okay. It had its quirks. I mean, it really was Microsoft's first attempt to give the gaming community or the game developers some kind of a formal API to work with. And we stuck with it through the end. And slightly after that, I think the DirectX beta came out, and we just decided to stick with WinG. And you know, that game is still being sold on Steam. I noticed the other day it's actually still running on WinG. I don't know how, but it is, and it's just really surprising to me. But
maybe that's this. Maybe it was a really good project after all. If WinG, if it still runs on a system.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think some people. There were some people who were core fans of Wizardry who kind of expected more, and we did a lot of things. We recorded a ton of audio. I think we recorded all the audio throughout the entire game. Some of the changes, like for example, the photos of the characters, the avatars, those ended up being different from what other people expected. But overall, it was a wonderful experience. So,
yeah, I had a question about that from Philippe Pepe. He wanted to know why Wizardry, this is from Twitter, I think, why Wizardry Gold uses Japanese-like character artwork.
I can answer that. So I had a very small staff that worked with me on the project. We're kind of a tight little group of people, and the artist in particular that did that work just really had that style, and we wanted to be consistent. So there wasn't really any plan for it to be that way necessarily. It just turned out that was the style of the artist that worked on those. So, but you're right, they do definitely have a bit of an Asian flair to them. So it was a bit of a departure from the originals. And we contemplated when we were thinking about this change, we had a couple of options. We could take the originals and just really rework them. But I think the final decision that came down was let's go with the new ones. So,
yeah, it's kind of interesting that it had that Asian style, I guess, because I think they're still making Wizardry games somewhere in Japan, right?
They are, yeah. In fact, I think there was Wizardry Online for a while. I know there was because I played it. I mean, I grabbed it when it came out and said, well, let's give this a try. It was a really difficult game. I was kind of sad to see it. See them shut down the servers on that one. I thought, you know, it is kind of a niche crowd, but the gameplay was kind of fun. You just had to be okay with it being difficult.
Well, that's no strange thing for those Wizardry games.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty old school, and I think having challenges in a game is a good thing for this kind of game.
Yeah, I can tell that from playing Stellar Tactics, but
Yeah, right.
I want to just hold off a little bit more before we get there. So just to catch us up to speed here, you mentioned that after this you'd worked on some other kinds of games. You mentioned Armed, and this is in the notes you sent me. Armed and Delirious, pretty fun title on that.
Yeah.
Excalibur 2555 AD, and Virus the Game. I mean, all those look like pretty interesting projects to me, but the one that I didn't know what to make of this Virus the Game. I was looking at the screenshots on that, and I mean, it looks really interesting.
Yeah, I think, honestly, all right, so those titles were part of a publishing arrangement at Surtech that we had with a distributor. And what we wanted to do is take them and make sure we Americanized them, make sure they were stable and ready for the market here. So a lot of the work that we did was just really making suggestions around how to improve them for the markets here in the States.
Where were these games coming from?
I don't remember the name of the publisher, but it was a European publisher. So we had, I think there was some kind of a mutual publishing arrangement that Rob and Norm had set up. And so Virus in particular was kind of like, it was kind of a Descent knockoff in a sense, where you're just kind of flying around in this computer system and attacking viruses and stuff. It was super low poly, but it was 3D, and at the time, people really wanted 3D. It was really important. So,
it looked like in the screenshots, you could actually see your file folder. Like you're flying around your own directory. I mean, that just seems.
It was a fascinating concept. So what they did is they had some kind of random algorithm that would take a look in your file structure and build a folder environment in 3D space. So it was procedural. Wow. It was really different. I don't know how well it did in the end. I never really asked, but I don't think it took off. Obviously.
I don't think that wouldn't get past the old Windows 10 alert system.
Oh yeah, it would swat that immediately. Yeah, Norton would delete that off your drive. Yeah. So
then I guess after this, I'm not really sure what year this was. Maybe you could tell me that. But you were working on a Diablo clone with an Asian theme.
Yeah.
And apparently the animation was giving you hell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So there are a couple things. Animation is.
Is that your Achilles heel?
It is my Achilles heel. I'll talk about it a couple of times. I'll talk about it with engineering, animation, and the game that we worked on there, and then again I'll tell you a little bit for Stellar Tactics. But so at the time, all animation was exported as sprites. So every frame of the animation, like in Diablo 1, was actually exported. So what you did is you rotoscoped your characters in 8 directions from a specific camera angle. And it took us forever to get that set up right, to get all the characters modeled first, get them animated in 3D Studio, I believe is what we used, and then to get them exported. And we wanted, on that particular game, to make sure that the animation was better than Diablo at the time. So we wanted more frames, and it took us forever. It took us almost a year, I think, to get to a point where we were demonstrating some really good fluid movement and animation. And by then, I think we'd already blown our schedule. So eventually what happened is we got to a point where we had a really nice demo. We went to, I think it was E3 at the time, and demonstrated the game. We had a bunch of Diablo or Blizzard people come over to our our display and take a look at it. And we had Diablo people in our display at the time, just for hours at a time, just playing it and looking at it. Very smart. But in the end, I think the game was being built for Activision at the time. Yeah, it was definitely Activision, and we canceled. And shortly after that, the company, which was originally Engineering Animation, was originally a court. They would develop accident animation sort of simulations for courts, for court systems. They went back to their original business and said, yeah, games are a little bit more difficult than we expected when it comes to making money. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm trying to think of the name of that guy that wrote one of the Diablo. What's his name? It's kind of evading my memory for some reason.
Which one?
Sort of the main Diablo guy.
With Blizzard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
David Brevik.
Where did he end up? He's not with them anymore, is he?
I don't know.
Huh.
I was thinking of him. I was playing Stellar Tactics, and I noticed a character with a name that seems kind of similar to his name, and I was wondering if that was like an homage to him.
No, there are a couple of things in there you might recognize as you play through.
I think I saw David Graben.
Yeah.
Is that
David Graben?
Yeah. I love that stuff,
Yeah.
Little inside jokes.
Yeah, it's important, and there a lot of these people really influenced what I do and what I've done in the past, and I don't think there's really a way in game design to not be influenced by some of what you've seen in the past in gaming.
All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about your Army Men, your work on the Army Men franchise. It's one of my favorite series. I love those games. And I guess you met your wife.
I did.
Working on this. What Army Men was it that you were working on?
It was Sarge's Heroes.
Okay, good one. Yeah.
Yeah, Army Men Sarge's Heroes, and that was Nintendo. I think we did a PS1 version of it too, but I was primarily on the Nintendo project. And shortly after that, we started working, on the design to move forward into the franchise a little bit further. I don't know where that ended up eventually. Somewhere in that process, I met my wife, Liz, that's at 3DO, and then I ended up with an offer out of the blue to come up to Sierra. And
just out of the blue, huh?
Yeah, I was out of the blue. Well, at the time, there was a lot of poaching. So, and in the game industry, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's like this bus that you get on, and you kind of get on the bus, and you get off at a game development studio or a publisher, and then a year or two later, or 3 or 4 years later, you get back on the bus and get off at another publisher. There's a lot of movement. So, I was poached. Not that Sierra would like to hear that. They probably weren't even aware it was a recruiter sort of situation. But yeah, it was great. I mean, I got to work with some great people, Mark Siebert, Mark Hood, Jeff Popst, just some people who are really, I'd say, just amazing publishing talent. And just all around, just kind of really knowledgeable about games and game development. So
maybe we should slow down a little bit here because, you mentioned you'd gone to Sierra. And one of the games that you have worked on is Arcanum. That's a game that comes up all the time here at Match-It. There's a lot of fans of that game and really of Tim Kaine, pretty much all his stuff. So could you just give us the full story of that Arcanum and your involvement with that?
Yeah, so of course, an incredibly talented team of designers, coders, and just generally all around very knowledgeable people. My job at Sierra when I initially came in was to take over Homeworld 2. Jeff Popst at the time was the producer on Arcanum, and he kind of drove that project all the way through, I'd say just past the halfway point, maybe a little bit further. And when I say that, I say that's driving from the publisher point of view. The people who really get the credit for the game are the people who are doing the creative work, like Tim Kaine and the entire team down there. And it was very creative work. It was different from anything anybody had ever seen before, and that was the whole goal. Everybody wanted to see something new, something different in the sort of turn-based, and it was actually, I think it was turn-based slash real time. You could go into both modes, which was a really cool thing. So my job there was to sort of guide that project through to completion and work with the developers. And, you know, it was a great opportunity. I did get to spend some time with Tim and the rest of the team. The game eventually shipped, and we were starting to work on some ideas, sort of a next generation kind of game. But at the time, Sierra was going through a complete reorg. It had been purchased by Vivendi Universal, and there was a major downsizing of the entire, or complete reorg and downsizing of the company. And I kind of walked into that position almost right in the middle of that, just before all that started. So I'm just thinking, can I say
rotten timing?
Well, it was unfortunate. You know, there were some people there who had been there for a long time, and they were so dedicated to Sierra, but they lost their jobs in the process. And these are people who brought a lot of other people who love video games, some great entertainment, many hours of wonderful entertainment, and you know, suddenly they were gone. And these were the people who brought me on board. So a few things happened. I did have the opportunity to work towards wrapping up Arcanum and working, you know, with that group. We started working on some other demos and things with their team, trying to get the next project wrapped up. But right when that happened, the reorg started. So it was a terrible time for, you know, for everyone. So the other thing that happened while I was there, and this is separate from Arcanum, was that Lord of the Rings Online was in the process of sort of solidifying the design for that project. And my involvement in that was really just a babysitter. Jeff Popst had gone on vacation right when the reorg started. So we were sitting in the room. Who wants to take care of Lord of the Rings is what they asked the entire team of remaining producers. And I put my hand in the air, which may have been a big mistake, because I kind of got to babysit Lord of the Rings Online for about 4 or 5 months. And in the end, at the time, Vivendi Universal wanted it desperately, Universal Studios. So there was a big internal battle that proceeded, and it was just, it kind of soured me on the whole publishing industry at the time. But eventually they got it. And then after that, as you know, it moved on to Turbine, and Turbine ended up with the license eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had Johnny Wood on not too long ago. I think he might have worked on it when it went on Turbine.
Yep. Well, they did. I think they did a great job with it. It's a really hard, it's a complex and difficult license. You had Salzance, who was the they basically manage all kinds of intellectual properties, and they were the point of contact for the Tolkien estate. And at the same time, EA had part of the franchise. The movies was going on. It was really complex. There was a lot going on in the background there. And I just want to say, you know, Mark Hood and Jeff Popst were doing such a fantastic job with that. And it was just a strange time. It just really was.
You know, a while ago you had mentioned that it seems like the creative people get all the credit for this stuff. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about this producer role. You know, maybe you could this might be a spot here we could sort of flesh this out a little bit, because I'm not sure a lot of people know really what a producer does, and you know, maybe why we should give a little more credit to producers instead of so much on designers.
Yeah, well, I compare it to what's that security guard movie? The Blart guy. He observes and reports. No, there's a lot more to it than just being sort of the security guard, but. So as a producer, really your job is to protect the interests of the publisher, to make sure that there is a schedule, there are milestones, and that those are being delivered on, to take care of the creative folks that are actually doing the work for the publisher, to remove blocking elements that can keep the project from being done, to work with the marketing group, work with the sales group, report progress to senior management, and just basically manage it as if it was your own baby. So producers in the game industry are good producers are hard to find. There are plenty of people who want to be a producer, but they just they suck at it. Just, they're just not good at it. They don't understand. A lot of producers actually kind of come up from the ranks of making games, and they get, I'm not saying all of them, I don't want to lump it, but it can be a kind of a bitter job because you're not doing the fun stuff anymore. You're kind of running around solving problems and making sure people are being fed and paid and all the other things. And you stop doing the sort of things that you really enjoy doing, which is kind of hands-on working on stuff and being creative. So, but yeah, in general, I think that explains what a producer does pretty well. Ultimately, you're responsible for the quality of the game and delivering it on time.
Well, no, we don't have unlimited time here. I know, and definitely, I feel like there's just so much stuff in your history that I just have to bring up, though. And it's interesting.
Thank you.
But there's one thing that you sent in the notes, and I'm really just not at all sure what I'm going to get when I ask you this.
All right.
But you wrote Aquaman Battle for Atlantis, and yikes after that. So what's the story with Aquaman Battle for Atlantis?
So here's the deal. The truth is we had a lot of fun making it. The problem was that the premise, the core premise of the game had some flaws. You're Aquaman, you're flying around in water, and it was kind of like an action arcade a game, and you had a lot of kind of moves, that timing moves and things of that nature. So I think with the premise in general, we did pretty good, but it got terrible reviews. So that's what the yikes is. That's what that's about.
So do you think the reviews were accurate, or were they just being
think so, because
haters?
Well, there's a couple things, about it. It just didn't. It was sort of supposed to be a semi-low budget project in the first place, and we worked really hard on it. But in the end, I think the execution was poor, and we got dinged for it. So I don't regret doing it. Working with the folks at Lucky Chicken was a blast. And
Lucky Chicken.
Yeah, Lucky Chicken. Jamie Ottle, he's a great guy. But yeah, in the end, the execution was poor and it didn't turn out well. So that's what the yikes is for.
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Should be Halloween here pretty soon at the Matt Cave. As you can see, I've added a few little touches here. Love to know if you're going to dress up this year, particularly if you're doing a character from a role-playing or adventure game. If you do, let me send me the photo of that, and I'll put it in the next Matt Chat episode. Should be lots of fun. I'm not quite sure what I'm going as yet, but it's probably something steampunk related. My wife Elizabeth does all the costumes around here, and I know that she's been ordering quite a few sort of strange goggles and gears and things of that sort, and a top hat I think I saw. So I'll let you know. I'll be sure to post a photo. Always lots of fun around here on Halloween. As always, I want to thank you very, 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 very much for your support of this show. You keeping these episodes coming, guys. It really is important. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to do your part, just go over there to that link in the show notes to the Patreon site. All I ask is $1 a show, $1, $4 a month, whatever. Really, really helps, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. Also appreciate you guys posting about the show on Twitter, Facebook, and in your blog or whatever. Trust me, I appreciate it. All right, what about that news from the Matt Cave? All right, man, I got some awesome news this week. Holy hell. This first one is just really caught my eye. This is a new dungeon crawler. It's from the guys that did Cold Fire Keep a couple of years ago. That game, you know, it was okay. Didn't quite get the rave reviews. It looks like the developer, Steve Jarman, has learned from his mistakes with that, and this one looks a lot better. It's called Deep Paths, a Labyrinth of Endocost. It's a first-person dungeon-crawling RPG, a grid-based movement, just like a Legend of Grimrock or Dungeon Master for you guys who've been around a while. Active turn-based combat. Players explore a vast labyrinth filled with dangerous creatures and hidden treasures to unravel an ancient mystery and deliver their city from harm's way. Old-school retro feel. Modernized homage to classic 80s and 90s dungeons crawlers such as Dungeon Master and Lands of Lore. So this is, I guess, the second major outing for this developer, Steve Jarman. I'd like to get him on the show, so if you are Steve, or if you know Steve, tell him that I'd like to have him as a guest. I think he'd be fun. Also, there's another game. This one's not out yet, but it's called Depth of Extinction. And this is news from RPG Watch. That's where I learned about this. It's expected in 2017, a demo sooner than that. This is a retro RPG with a modern turn-based tactical combat system. Recruit and lead your team on raids in undersea habitats containing all that remains of humanity. Find cover and attack enemies, but be careful, every move is critical. And this is from HOF or Hoff Studios. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Underrail. Maybe that Copper Dreams that Joe and Hannah are working on, but it's kind of neat that it's an undersea setting. So check that out. Let me know what you think of that. And then finally, there's a write-up, sort of an anonymous whistleblower, I guess, or delayed whistleblowing, I guess. This is from Game Banshee. If you remember a company called Irrational Games, you probably know them for, BioShock, of course, but I think they did Freedom Force or one of those superhero games. Anyway, this write-up is about what happened to that company. It's called How 2K Killed Irrational Games. Here's a little snippet from it. Does anyone know why XCOM tanked? I know. He's talking about XCOM Declassified, I think. I know, I was there. It is because out of the above title is the only title where 2K headquarters felt obliged to get their hands dirty with the development. So I'll let you guys read the rest of the article, but this guy or girl, I guess, has a lot of a pretty big beef with 2K. I think you'll find this piece illuminating anyway. All right, I think that'll do it for the news. What about that Ale of the Week? So this week I've got a little number called the Pumpkin Spice Tonic, a delicious taste, distinctive flavor of pumpkin spice and cream, a satisfyingly delicious beverage known to be a restorative. So apparently this has medicinal qualities. Seasonal beverage enjoyed on a cold, dark fall evening with family and friends. Check. It is kind of cold outside today. Rumor has it a bottle of pumpkin spice will help inspire the most creative pumpkin carving sessions. Enjoy it plain from the bottle or as a compliment to your favorite fall spirit. Yeah, I've never carved a pumpkin in my life. I don't know why. I just never have gotten around to that. Maybe I'll make an exception this year. It'd be fun to see what I can carve up. I wonder if anybody's ever done a sort of a rat, like jack-o'-lantern. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, I've already poured this one. Got a little ahead of myself, I'm afraid. So it's already in the horn. It smells like sort of like a vanilla, maybe like one of those little candy pumpkins. You know what I'm talking about? Those little candy corn pumpkin things. Kind of what this smells like. I'm guessing this is going to be very sweet. It kind of smells like a a cream soda more than a pumpkin ale. If you've I love those. But this is a non-alcoholic pumpkin drink. Anyway, it smells good. Let's give it a taste. You know, it kind of tastes like those candies I was talking about, those little candy pumpkins. It's extremely sweet. A little bit of a pumpkin flavor, but really what I'm tasting here is cream soda with kind of that sort of pumpkin cream corn candy, whatever those things are called, mixed in with it. It's actually pretty good, but it's definitely on the sweet side. Let me try it again here. Yeah, just really, really sweet. I'm kind of surprised. I was thinking with the name tonic, it would sort of have a bitter flavor like tonic water, but I guess that's just the name. This is pretty much just, it tastes like pretty much like pure sugar. Maybe a little bit of a pumpkin flavor, but mostly just really, really sweet. It's kind of overwhelming at that amount of sugar. You know, if you want something super, super sweet, you know, how about this? You're eating those Halloween candies and you need a drink that's going to be sweet enough where it still tastes sweet, even with all that sugar you're putting in to your mouth. This would be a good choice. Otherwise, probably a little bit too sweet. So I think I'm going to go maybe 2 out of 5 on this. A little disappointed. I thought with the spice and the tonic, you know, I was kind of expecting something with some heat to it, maybe some interesting flavors, but instead it's just sort of sugary, sugary, sugary. So 2 out of 5 I think will do for the pumpkin spice tonic. All right, so let's wrap this up with a quotation. And I was looking for quotes about Halloween. And I found this one from Douglas Copeland. Or Copeland maybe. He's a Canadian author and an artist, so a really creative guy. Anyway, it goes something like this. If human beings had genuine courage, they'd wear their costumes every day of the year, not just on Halloween. I couldn't agree more. See you guys next week.